All right, it looks like we are finally online. So, hello everybody. Thank you for tuning in. This is the Erasmus Expeditions, and tonight we are going to be playing in a setting called the Caldera. It's a setting that my channel started with, where I ran a campaign that ended up going 15 sessions. So yeah, there's a lot of content for this setting. If you are interested in this kind of thing, this kind of fantasy Western Weird West stuff, then there's a lot of content here on the channel that you can go and check out. I could also recommend Tyler Hurst has a channel called drawing a blank. But he has a Provenance setting, so you could probably search by that. Go check him out. And yeah, we've got one more player who should be joining us here, hopefully midstream before we get things too going on too far. But so that takes care of the channel and the setting. I'm going to pass it over to my players and let them introduce themselves, and then a couple of points of business, and we'll get started. So, Dave, why don't you take us away?
Good evening. I'm Dave with Mornblade Gaming, and tonight I'll be playing Solomon Garing. Also goes by the name of Holy Joe. He is, well, he's kind of a solemn individual as of late, taken to whiskey and other bad things. But we'll see how that goes. Looking forward to playing with these fine people tonight.
Excellent. Thank you, Dave. It's always a pleasure to have you around, man. Megan, you're up.
Hey everyone, I'm Megan. I'm one half of the YouTube channel Dice on Ice, and tonight I will be playing Sophie O'Neill. She is someone who is often found cloaked and hooded, and though mysterious, she can sure play a fiddle. So I'm super excited to play in tonight, and yeah, thanks for having me.
Always. And next but not, we've got Jason.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jason, and tonight I will be playing Dire Krubon, also known as Stone because of his stone-colored eyes. He is a Minotaur, getting on in years. He's got a little bit of gray in his fur. A gentle giant, but definitely someone that you don't want to be on the wrong side of. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to tonight. Should be interesting.
Yeah, with any luck, it will be. And then we've got Chris.
Hey, I'm Chris with Drop Dice. As mentioned, if you are interested in this kind of content on the channel Drop Dice, you can actually find a 4-part series. It's actually 3 games, but it got split into 4. It's for the playlist Stratmere. It's or episodes 3 through 6 on the list there. It is probably my favorite game that I ran in all of 2016, so I do recommend it. And my character this evening would be Akacheta, who is half a Durathian. Is that how you say it? Cool.
Excellent. Cool. Yeah, and the last player who should be joining us here shortly is Chad. I'll let him do his introduction when we ever get to the break. All right. Yeah, one other piece of advice, if you're not new to this channel and you've heard this before, this is an adult game. We are adults. There's going to be adult language and a lot of times mature topics. If that's the kind of thing that kind of gets to you and gets under your skin, then you really should just do yourself a favor and leave. But I appreciate you checking in, and hopefully you'll give us another chance sometime. But before we get into actually starting the game, does anybody have any questions they want to cover, any points of business, etc.? No? Okay. Stall for time for just a couple minutes here. All of these people mentioned their channels. I have put the links to their channels in the description of this video, so definitely go and check them out. Give them some views and some love if you like actual plays and stuff. There's a whole bunch that you can go and check out. Yeah. All right. Then we will get started. Caldera is the kind of place where evil and good can be difficult to judge. There are some good folk who have to do bad things. It's just the way of life out here in the Caldera, place they call the threshold of hell. But just as there are some good people who will do bad things, even bad men and women sometimes carry with them the weight of the things they've done. Sometimes redemption isn't as far out of reach as you might think. But the truth of it was you can never tell. And as we fly in over this enormous landscape, this sunken, round pit in the ground that stretches on for hundreds and thousands of miles, we see that it is winter. Snow covers the ground, leaving only small strands of straw-like grass to poke out here and there. We travel northward towards the upper rim of this caldera, where the mountains get steeper, the trees get more of the evergreen variety, they're blanketed under white. We see the light of a small campfire. And seated on that around that campfire, we see a rather large creature, one of fur and horn. And explain to us exactly what we are seeing whenever we are looking at Dire. Would you please, Jason?
Sure. So Dire is roughly about 6 feet tall, probably a little taller than that. A good 300 pounds of muscle and this sort of light brown fur. His horns probably aren't as big as most people are expecting when they think of a minotaur in the caldera. They're sort of smaller, kind of yellowish with black tips. And he's got a mane that starts at the top of his head, but then runs down his back, almost like a horse's mane. It's this sort of reddish brown color with gray streaks that show his age. At the moment, he's just wearing, this old and battered looking, but well-maintained armor and this sort of like thick leather overcoat over it. His hooves, these big brown hooves that are all cracked and worn with time and travel, are exposed to the elements, but he doesn't seem to mind. Simple leather breeches, his tail kind of curled around his legs. These big sort of four-fingered hands. He's sort of warming himself by this fire. And his eyes, these stony gray eyes that earned him the nickname Stone, are sort of scanning the area around his campfire for any potential dangers. He looks intimidating. He's a minotaur, but there's a tiredness to him and a little bit of a sadness too, as he sort of glances around at the snowy surroundings and huddles closer to the campfire.
And as we see this large creature huddled close to this fire, this meager fire amid this wonderland of white, a figure approaches through the dampened quiet that a forested snowscape can bring. You hear the crunch as somebody approaches. Who would that be? It's just as a clarification, this would be for one of the other PCs.
Sure. I think it'd be Akacheta going next. Akacheta has taken off his boots and let them sink into the snow. Something that is not terribly common around here. It only being a few inches, he's just taking in the cool temperatures between his toes. He's dressed as you would for the caldera in the summer, pretty much year round, but he also has some interesting features about him. As a half Dorathian, rather. He keeps his hair long and does not cut it for religious reasons, but he has what appears to be this kind of plume of feathers coming out of the back of his head. Someone who doesn't know any better would assume that they were just inserted into his braid, but he's carefully braided his hair around the feathers. They are actually a natural growth from his scalp to signify his heritage. As he gets closer, the bag that he's kind of shouldered over slumps to the ground, realizing that he ran into someone he thought he'd never see again. Stone. It figures. Can't seem to get away from you, can I? Dragging the bag through, he takes a seat next to the dwindling fire and pulls out a log from his pack. He doesn't have much left after wandering around in the desert.
So Stone, recognizing Akacheta, he actually reaches down by his side. There's this old war hammer that's sort of decorated with these tribal symbols and tattered feathers. He actually picks it up and kind of lays it across his legs, and he leans forward, the flame sort of illuminating his face. And he says, Akacheta, makes sense that these wind and snow spirits would blow you here to my fire. You remember what I told you the last time we saw each other? Said I'd kill you if I ever saw you again. What are you doing here, Shola? And that's the that would be the Minotaur word for enemy or adversary, Shola.
Today I'm here to offer wood. Your fire needs it. I need a place to stay, and I happen to have the wood you need. I figure it's a fair trade. We can go our separate ways once it's done.
Well, you're right, I guess. But just know in the morning, you're still here, this warhammer is going through that head of yours. And he actually hefts up the hammer and kind of points it at Akacheta before setting it back on his lap, sort of scooting a little bit closer to the fire, but also trying to maneuver himself so that he's always looking at Akacheta, just unspeaking after this.
That's fine. Akacheta actually will willingly go over to the other side of the fire so that he can maintain a bit of distance and keep the fire between the two of you. As he kind of circles around, he'll drop in his log that he's brought with him. But you can see the bag that he left open. He's only got about three more logs with him. It's hardwood, so it'll last through the night, but it's not more than one night's worth of firewood.
And as the silence kind of settles back on this small clearing once more, it's not long before it is disturbed once again by the sound of someone approaching. And who do we see emerge from the whirlwind of snow?
You would actually hear the figure before you saw her, and you would hear the small plucking, the short sound of a string being plucked, and then a pause, and then another pluck. And out of the shadows, you would see a hooded figure, almost a silhouette against the storm. And for an instant, you almost see the flash of two almost glowing eyes in the depths of this deep hood. And the figure comes in hand. And you see the figure just kind of stop at the fire from the hood. You'd hear, "Oh, shit."
And upon hearing that familiar voice, Stone's sort of grim expression widens into this big, toothy, bovine smile, and his eyes sort of widen, and he actually stands up, or starts to stand up, but then he sits back down, and he just says, "Little Fox, is that you standing over there? Come into the light, girl. I want to see your face." He sort of leans forward a little bit.
And she would approach and kind of take down her hood, and she has this kind of smile, the one and only.
How long has it been? And you actually see, maybe from the corner of one of his eyes, a little tear starting to kind of make its way through the fur on his face, as his grip kind of tightens on the warhammer, but he's just got this big, goofy grin on his face now, completely forgetting that Akacheta is even here.
Too damn long, that's for sure.
You're damn right. Sit down by this here fire, warm yourself. Don't mind the other one. He sort of nods his snout in the direction of Akacheta before returning his gaze to Little Fox.
And you kind of looked at Akacheta and just kind of nod. Still got your bone flute?
Do. But here,
Good.
tonight, I'm here just to enjoy the fire. I'll be gone by morning.
You best be.
And in the time that you've made introductions, gotten friendly with each other, you notice that Akacheta's pulled out a flask.
And I think
actually very much out of character for him.
Yeah, I think that Little Fox would kind of know that, and then kind of look between Dyer and Akacheta, and just kind of shake her head and just, well, we got tonight. What do you say we just relax and catch up?
I'd be happy to catch up with you, Little Fox, anytime, but the Shola can stay where he is. I ain't got nothing to say to him. Not after what happened. And he sort of pauses for a moment, and the smile fades after what happened to Jake.
And
Fair.
Go ahead.
And
please.
Another heavy swig.
Just as the flask kind of covers your vision for just a moment and then falls away, who is it that comes striding out of the darkness from immediately behind the flask? Chad, why don't you go ahead?
A rather tall, lithe shadow with a large brimmed hat stands in the weather against the fire. He looks down at the crew, and his almost aged and weathered eyes look down upon them, and he says nothing, but he gives a small wry grin. He shakes his head, and there's a cigar that sort of hangs out of the side of his mouth. This, you all know, when the light begins to sort of illuminate his shadowed figure, is keen dust blood. This man seems human for all regards, except his face seems more angular. His ears seem to tuck at the edges of his hat. And he looks to the crew. How long has it been since... How long has it... Good Lord. Is that what y'all look like nowadays? You miss me? Because I don't know if I missed any of your faces. And he takes a seat at the fire. Very nonchalantly, like it almost doesn't matter that, you know, that they're having this meeting.
So Dyer, when he hears Keen's voice and he sees that stupid familiar hat, he actually like full on just mouth flops open. He looks at Little Fox and sort of glances at Akacheta, but then goes back to Little Fox and he just points wordlessly with his big old meaty finger at Keen, just completely stunned. He doesn't even say anything. He's just sort of gaping at him. And he tries to, what the hell you doing here, boy?
Dyer. Oh. How long has it been? How long has it been? 2, 3, 10 years? I don't even know anymore of that.
Ain't that long. Ain't that long.
You look good for a piss poor bison.
You still wearing that stupid hat, I see. That thing's barely called a hat. It's like a sack with aspirations or something.
Keeps sun out of my eyes so I can, do what I need to. Anywho, he looks around the fire. Y'all look depressed as shit. What's wrong with y'all?
And I think in that moment, I think we hear a voice singing out from somewhere in the woods nearby. It doesn't exactly sound like a voice that you can really hear well enough to tell what it's saying, because most of it seems slurred. So who is it that comes riding up next?
You hear this? Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, wait. You're supposed to sing at that time. Now let's try it again. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, fuck me hard. What is wrong with you? Now I'm going to try it again. He kind of leans forward in the wagon as it's rolling forward as this horse pulls him in. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. And he falls out, and his whiskey bottle just falls to his side, and he just lays down on the ground, and he's just laying there. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. God damn it. Can't teach you fucking Dorathians shit. As he sort of starts falling asleep next to the wagon there.
Yeah, I think the horse takes another few steps so it can get itself closer to the fire and just kind of leaves you, several yards back behind it in the snow.
Yeah. And every now and again, he kind of mutters and burps, and he's just laying there in the snow, just sort of fucking cold. Fuck. He kind of sits up a little bit and grabs the bottle and takes it and realizes he's dry and just throws it. Gets up and just unceremoniously starts pissing right there on the side of the road.
And I imagine he's probably fully facing the group of you seated around the fire.
Mm-hmm.
So, is anybody reacting to this at all?
No words, but Akacheta is smiling that he's on the opposite end of the fire right now.
Boy, anyway, you gonna grab that damn horse? It's running free right now.
Dyer just sort of shakes his head, just wondering how in the name of all the spirits, you know, that this particular group of people happen to congregate here. Especially, I mean, this is probably not the first time he's seen Holy Joe at the end of a bender. So he just sort of sighs and gets up, just sort of resigned to it all. And he goes and grabs the horse and ties it up to like a spur of rock or something like that. He looks at Holy Joe and just takes him by the shoulders and tries to turn him around so he is pissing away from the fire.
Get your hands off me, you fucking bull.
Now listen
God
here.
damn it.
Listen here, Holy Joe. I've seen enough of your sword to last a lifetime. Now piss away from the fire. He actually gives
turns
him a little
around and
shove.
almost urinates on you.
Ah!
Is
You
that...
think you're funny.
Man, you don't get any fucking better with age, do you?
No, I do not.
God damn. And he squints and looks over at the fire as he's sort of reaching down and he's shoving himself back in his pants and he's like, my dear. Well, it ain't like you ever seen a naked man before. You guys look familiar.
Oh, dear God.
Why? Why do the spirits have such a twisted sense of humor?
Joe, I thought you died. Like, honestly, I thought you died.
I thought I died too. I think I went to hell. But then again, isn't it Caldera hell?
Yeah, even hell didn't want to keep you.
Oh, God.
I was going to say, all the alcohol in your veins, Holy Joe, would probably make you explode if you went down to the eternal fire.
You know, the good books of Luzite say that you got to treat your neighbor right because you got to treat your neighbor right. As I kind of walk over and half fall down and sit down next to Akcheta. I still can't pronounce your name right, but those feathers are pretty.
Akacheta, picking up on the clue, holds out his flask for Holy Joe.
Thank you kindly. Thank you. He takes it and he actually drains it.
Yeah, there wasn't much left at that point. It's probably like a hip flask. It only had like 6 ounces to begin with.
And he gets up and he kind of staggers a little bit and he walks over to the back of the wagon and you hear this creak of something and he takes out something and he throws it to Akcheta and it's a full bottle. Think there's enough for the rest of you in here, but I get 2. As he walks back kind of staggering with another bottle.
You can keep your liquid death, Holy Joe. Though you, Shulo, you should drink up. And Dyer sort of looks around and just shakes his head and he's like, what are the odds? The dead wind fucking drifters back together again. You're right, little fox. The spirits do have a twisted sense of humor.
Pretty girl, would you play something kindly for us? I mean, like a lullaby or something?
You call me girl one more time, and I'm gonna be playing music with your vocal cords.
Oh, I love that fire. Mm-hmm.
And about that time, all of you hear a noise. It may not perhaps be music or the throttling of a drunk man, but it is the sound of a horse's whinny, low and guttural almost not quite natural for a horse. And it sounds as though there is another that approaches your fire. But this person approaches in a slow manner. And before you're ever able to see him or his steed, you hear the sounds of chains with each clop of the horse's hoof, each crunch of snow that it makes. And it starts soft at first, but then it grows louder and louder as this person slowly makes their way towards your place in the woods. And as this figure rides mounted slowly out of the snow, you're able to see not much, just kind of black features, heavy in the saddle. And just about the time that you are able to start making out details, the individual turns his face up towards you, up towards the snow. And you see a ghastly face, a skull, looking back at you, white against the dark of the night. And at that moment, the area all around this black-cloaked rider erupts into flames. And you can see this individual bound in chains that connect him to some unforeseen point behind him. The rider doesn't approach. He simply looks upon each of you, his dark eye sockets, all the blacker against the flames that surround him. And something in your gut tells you that you know the skull of this man. You recognize the steed and the boots as belonging to your ex-gang leader, Jake Slade. He kind of looks down from upon his flaming steed, and he says, "I've gathered you all here tonight to warn you. Do you see these shackles I wear?" And he kind of jerks his body, and all of these almost ethereal chains clink against his movement. These are the chains that bind me to my sins. They weigh me down. The guilt, the remorse, things I didn't think I could still feel. I wear these chains for eternity. Is this what you want? If you don't want this, you must change your ways. Repent. Or else hell will come calling for you, just as it has me. I am not the only spirit who will visit you this night. You will meet 3 others. Hopefully, they can show you the error of your ways. You've got until dawn. Then your fate is sealed. He turns and rides his flaming horse back into the darkness. The flames slowly dying out with each step of the horse through the snow. And in a flash, the 5 of you are left alone in the middle of the woods once more.
I think probably having known Jake the longest out of the rest of the crew, I think that the Keen is the first to sort of speak up and be startled by the image. Jake was the first to take Keen on as refuge and kind of teach him the criminal ways of bounty hunting and train robbing and all the sorts of things that you do out here in Caldera to survive. And Keen sort of backs up, stands up directly, immediately from the fire. His eyes, his already gaunt face, almost like skeletal in horror, seeing his best friend, his mentor, this way. Oh, hails. Jake, that ain't you. That's some illusion now. It's the caldera, it's the dust. Playing with our brains, that's what it is. I ain't gonna believe it. Not one bit. You understand me? That's a funny joke, Jake. Don't play with my mind.
You all saw that too? I thought it was the sour mash.
Nah, fool. We all saw the chieftain. And he looks over at Keen. He says, "It was just a spirit, boy. That's all. Sit down and stop your belly aching." But Dyer, quite contrary to his usual appearance, looks visually shaken. And he just keeps sort of looking off in the direction that this flaming specter rode off. And he's just sort of shaking his head and blinking and just looking, not even so much confused as just stupefied by what he's just witnessed.
Yeah. You're right, Dyer. It's just a mirage. It's I need a... And he like, I imagine there's a couple of different bottles surrounding the fire. He just grabs a bottle from around the fire and takes a swig and coughs because he doesn't realize what the hell he just drank. He's like, shit. You humans and your whiskeys that burn. I'm all right. It's worth it. It's worth it.
Good. It's good whiskey, man. Don't waste it.
Holy Joe, I don't need a lecture from you. God damn it. Okay. So, what do we do now? I mean, we can't just sit here on our asses. What do we do?
Well, what are we supposed to do? This... whatever he was just comes in and says we need to change our ways? What are we supposed to do? Save some damsel?
And I think Keen laughs at that.
Yeah, you're probably right. He's asking way too much of us. We ain't going back like that. Look, I have been doing what I've been doing for a really long time. And I don't intend to let no conscience of some... And he says something that I feel like might twinge some of you in the wrong way. I ain't gonna let some 2-bit con artists, ghosts, come back and haunt me and tell me that I'm the one in the wrong. Understand? If he didn't think
You're calling Slade a 2-bit con artist.
You watch your mouth, boy. That was the chieftain. He led us.
Look,
For the moment,
there's a
Holy Bill actually
reason.
looks kind of sober, and he kind of grabs at his revolver.
And
That man was my brother.
Uh,
Shit went sideways. You know that.
yeah, I do.
Why don't we play through it again?
Hey,
Maybe each one of us played our part, right? He looks over at Occhetta.
which one of us? Now, you've been in firefights with me a long time, Holy Joe. You have. We've been doing this a long time. Which one of us do you think can reach their gun faster? Don't test me. I'm not trying to say anything wrong. I have respect for our dearly departed captain. Understand that. He was our leader. I don't disregard that. But the fact that he would be so judgmental to come out and call us out when he's the whole reason that he's dead in the first place. Nah, if he didn't want to do those actions, that's up to him. He doesn't get to come back and tell me how to live my life.
Jake was a lot of things, man. He's so crooked he could swallow nails and spit out corkscrews. But he was my brother. And goddamn if I wouldn't follow him to the grave. I almost did that day. I crawled out of that town.
I know. I understand that. Look, I'm sorry. The man practically raised me, man. It's hard for me to...
and I think that he would grab a bottle and just like chuck it into the fire, and like flames would just go, and he would kind of be throwing a fit and walk away from the fire for a minute because he doesn't want to do anything to you guys, but he's certainly pissed off right now.
And Dyer would actually get up from where he's seated, grab his warhammer, and just sort of look at the group and be like, "I'll talk to him." And he sort of walks off to talk with Keen for a second. Look, Keen, I understand you didn't mean nothing by it. It was probably just a spirit wearing the guise of Jake. But you got to be careful. You opening up some old wounds with those words. You know what they say about old wounds? The blood beneath festers. It's poison. You got to be careful, boy. Especially with that Shulo over there. These are your friends. These are your Amani. We were tribe, Keen. So just take it easy. I know you're scared.
Yeah,
I'm scared too.
All right, fine. But look, I'm sorry, Dyer. You look, out of all of y'all, you're the one I trust the most. I didn't. That asshole. You had to do that, didn't you, you son of a bitch?
Look, just get your floppy ass hat wearing self back to the fire, all right? Just simmer down and I don't know. I know it's been a time, but maybe in the morning we head south together or something. I was gonna head to Bone Bowl, see if there were some folks needing a guide to maybe Godsend or Atticus's Descent. But you used to help me with that, remember?
Yeah, I do.
Back before you brought me into the gang, so I don't know. Why not?
All right, fine. Well, he dusts off his hat and kind of gets himself back together. Pulls his duster tighter over his, over his neck and says, "All right, fine. Let's get the group back together. I'm sorry about this."
You're fine, King. And Dyer sort of grips his shoulder as they walk back to the fire, and Dyer sits down.
And of the three of you who were sitting around the fire during this exchange, which one of you was the individual who was kind of staring into the coals?
I'd imagine that Solomon is probably contemplating the bottle in his hand and the fire at the same time as he's hunched over.
And Solomon, as you're kind of staring into the coals, the light and dark that you're seeing, the contrast between the coals themselves and the embers, are kind of playing tricks with your eyes, as they often do. Especially, when your vision is a little hampered to begin with. But you're fairly certain that you see a face in the coals staring back at you. And as you kind of shift your position to get a better look, the eyes follow you. What do you do?
I kind of look away and set the bottle down and rub my eyes. Take a quick swig of it and look back.
Face is staring back at you, kind of bemused. And it opens its mouth, and you hear kind of in a crackling fire-like sound effect. Holy Joe. How are you doing?
Based on tonight's proceedings, I am 3 fucking sheets to the wind. How are you?
Is anybody respond to Holy Joe's outburst?
Yeah, do any of us hear the fire, or just does it sound like
The rest of you can make
crackling?
perception checks at disadvantage.
Okay. Oh, that's a 9.
Anyone else attempting? Anybody else? That includes Chad and Jason. You guys can make that roll as well as you wish, as you were coming back.
Okay, I thought we were still making our way back, but yeah, I'll go ahead and roll. Hang on. Yeah, that's a 2 plus something, so definitely nothing.
Fair enough. So there was one other of you who did notice it. Akesicha. I did not say that right. Sorry. Akecheta.
Here, have the whiskey bottle. It might help.
Right. You definitely heard it. You know, maybe it's your, the time that you spent training with some of the Dorathian hunters or something to that effect, but you picked it out as a very unnatural noise, like something in disguise.
I think that Little Fox would look at. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, everyone's frozen. So, she would look at Solomon and just say, "Who in the hell are you talking to? Haven't you stirred up enough shit already?"
Me stirring up shit? I brought the whiskey. I'm having a conversation here, girl.
I see that, but there's nobody there.
He's right there. Anybody else see this?
Agacheta's looking in the same direction, but he kind of continues to say nothing. Again, kind of out of character for him. Usually he's a little bit more lively. Definitely something of this caliber would get him up in the air and moving around at this point.
No one heard nothing. I think I need to relieve you of some of your stash.
Here, hold
Don't
this.
shush me.
Take this, girl. He's trying to hand you the whiskey bottle.
She would just grab it, muttering something about you calling her girl, and just take a swig.
And as the firelight kind of catches in the glass of this bottle, you pull it away and you see the same face in the bed of coals. Its eyes kind of turned sideways, looking at you. Again, this kind of half smirk on its face. And it just blinks a couple of times.
I'd look at it, look at the bottle, trying to think if I had any of this cursed drink, and I would just hand it back to him. I think there's something in your drink. But her eyes don't go to Solomon. When she hands him back the bottle, she just is staring at the fire.
Yeah, that's Black's cursed sour mash. It's good stuff. He's kind of leaning over the fire. Who are you?
I am a spirit. One from not a place, but from a time. A time that you should remember. You and your friends will be tested tonight. I hope that you do well. And suddenly, the fire all around you begins billowing smoke, as if green wood had been placed directly on it, or wet leaves. And this kind of acrid thick white smoke fills the clearing almost instantaneously. You all begin hearing shouts and screams, but they're distorted. They're stretched, almost as if stretched through time, drawn out and warbled, but they're screams no less. And as the smoke starts to kind of clear just a little, you all realize where you are. Not so much where you are, but when you are. So if I could please have a volunteer to tell me a couple of aspects of that day when shit went wrong. And as you now find yourself there, once again, this time as an outside viewer.
Sure. So it was kind of a crisp day before the first snowfall. The weather was a clear sky, which, if you were to ask any Durathan or Durathian, would mean that it's going to be hell tomorrow. So we were kind of expecting poor weather. We all have kind of heavier coats on. We look the part of what we should be. The problem is Akachetta's not in a great situation specifically. You can see that he is about to get involved with a couple of men that are wearing dusters that look like they could possibly belong to us, but instead of darker shades of brown and black, they're wearing lighter shades of tan and gray. Looking around, the camera kind of spins and shows the rest of the scene. It's a town that it's more of one of those strip towns where everything is a row and a line, and there's only really one street that goes through the whole thing. You can see a couple of horses tied up in front of a bank, a bar next to that bank, and then a cat house next to that. That's kind of the main street where everything went down. Somebody who's paying close attention to the frame of the camera can see somebody hiding on top of the cat house with a rifle.
And who is that individual on top of the cat house with the rifle?
He's a younger kid. We just picked him up. His name is going to be Jeremiah. He's an Unglar. Came to us with references. Checked him out. He thought he could be good for at least a spotter. But as we see, he's actually a plant. He's not there to help us.
And who wants to go next? Add on to this developing scene. Tell us where we are, what might be going on.
I will. So while Akacheta is about to get involved with these folks wearing different colored coats, and Jeremiah is on the roof, Dyer is standing next to Jake, and maybe the others are with them, and they're about to enter this bank. They have, like the classic sort of like bandanas or handkerchiefs around their faces to conceal their identities. The weapons are coming out as they kind of walk through the door. And right as they walk in, Dyer, who's sort of watching this, hears his past self sort of say, Chief, just remember, you be careful in there, all right? And I'll protect you. Don't worry. I'm your Achero, the guardian of your body, your protector. I got your back. And And so they just burst in there and just start, hollering like, this is a robbery, you know what I mean? Like the classic bank heist, hoping for reinforcements and for Jeremiah to take care of anybody else that might come into the bank or sound an alarm or something to that effect. And they've done this a couple of times, so it's pretty routine at this point.
And is there anyone with Jake and Stone who went into the bank?
I think that Little Fox would already be in the bank, kind of posing as a customer, but kind of scouting out the place, making sure maybe to talk to some people to kind of maybe draw them all kind of together, making some sort of scene, something like that. And just getting them all together, making sure that there's no stragglers that could run and get help or anything like that.
And the last two members that of the posse that we might recognize, where are the two of you?
I would imagine that Solomon was not far away, probably within 50 feet of him. And he's actually on the side, kind of leaned up against the pole, flirting with a girl, because he is a pretty handsome man. At least he thinks he is. And as he hears the commotion, he kind of cocks his hat and he says, "Pardon me, my lady. That's my cue." And at that point, you see four figures sprout next to him as he starts walking out towards in front of the bank to basically cover the entrance and cause a decoy with mirror image. And at that point, he kind of raises his hand up and his gun just immediately leaps to his hand as he lashes out with a lightning lure with his left one and whips back one of the deputies maybe that's coming forward and says, boy, won't be having none of that."
And Chad.
I think Keen is quiet. Keen's a very silent kind of man. He doesn't talk very much. And on most heists, he is usually in the spot where they would put Jeremiah. He is the rifleman. He is the where they put Jeremiah. He's the rifleman. He is the gunner. And I think in this situation, he wants to stay close. He wants to be closer this time. And I think that might be one of the reasons why things didn't go so right. This time, he doesn't take point as the rifleman on the top of a nearby building. He doesn't take point where he should have. And instead of being the long gunner, he walks in with Jake and the rest of them. Stand side by side, pistol in hand, his face cloaked by a green bandana that sort of like covers up most of his elven features to hide that Fey lineage. And he's gonna come in with them, pistol raised in the air, long gun, rifle, musket on the back of his back. But for the most part, he's going around right now in the midst of all this commotion, and he is the gatherer, and he's got the bag open, asking people to like start throwing in their goods and their loot. Basically, he is all about getting this heist together.
Come on now. Do what he asks. Look, we don't want to hurt you. We don't want to. You do what he says, and everything will be all right. Do you hear me, old man? Answer me. Put the money in the bag.
And as we see the moment building to a head, that point in time when things changed forever, the point of no return for the Deadwood Drifters. But before we reach that point, the five of you realize that you are standing in and amongst the people of this town. You find yourself standing in this event. And the voice rings out, disembodied. Change what is wrong. Correct your mistakes. So you now realize that there are two versions of you present. A younger, less experienced, but before that day, before that moment, version of you. And the version of you that is wiser, more practiced. And you build to that moment when everything changed and everything in your life kind of started going wrong. So, before we get to that moment, is there anything that the five of you wish to do?
I'm all set.
Yeah, I think Solomon is used to playing the decoy with the mirror image and trying to pull the shot. He's used to taking a shot here and there, but it's worked in the past where basically he's out in front. He's just like, come on. And he kind of gives them time inside to do what they're going to do. But he thinks to himself, should I have waited?
So the older version.
I'm sorry. Right.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So essentially, you guys are the current versions of your characters. And you find yourself standing in this scene with the younger versions of your characters on a course that you know is set, that you've seen happen. You've just seen it played out from a different perspective. So now you're kind of present in what's going on, but people are responding to you. So it's as if you're actually there.
Okay, so noticing that, Dyer would immediately look at his past self, completely unaware of if this can change anything or not. But he looks at his past self and just says, listen to me, you fucking fool. If you hear anything going on outside of this building in those streets, you do not respond. Do you hear me? And I'm assuming the past version of himself just completely ignores him and just continues walking alongside Jake towards where they would keep the gold eagles.
He actually pauses for a moment and kind of looks in your direction with a confused look on his face, as if he had heard something that he wasn't sure was really there. And then he does turn back on his way and continue on with Jake.
Shit. And Dyer, again, looking visibly nervous, sort of looks at the others, the older, more experienced versions of themselves, like, this is it. This is the day the chieftain died. We got to do something. This is insane. This ain't just no spirit trick. This is something more.
I think that's when Keen pops you in the mouth. Like, you... Look, you start...
Fuck, spirits. What the fuck was that for, boy?
You start freaking out. It's gonna cause me to freak out. I'm already dealing with all of this bullshit. You understand? We got to keep our level heads. We won't make this change. It's gonna have to happen together. All right? Now, I'm gonna try to talk to my bull-headed self, son of a bitch. We got to do something more than talk to him. No.
That damn door. I'm standing in front of that damn door, and Dyer just like starts shoving people out of the way to move towards the door of the bank to try and block it with his body, basically.
Right. I think that Keen, seeing how you interacted with yourself, kind of sees himself, and he remembers that scene. He remembers how aggravated he got and how angry and how hot-headed he can kind of be sometimes. He kind of has a itchy trigger finger. And he goes over to himself, and he just looks at himself for a minute. Doesn't say a single thing. And then he puts his hat down, puts it towards his chest. He says,
you scumbag. Look, I don't know if this is going to change me much. I don't even know if this is going to change what I do in the future. But I'm going to ask you one damn thing. Control your temper. Control your temper, you half-elven son of a bitch. Do you understand that? That's your human side not listening to your elven tranquility. Do you understand that? Relax yourself, and you'll get through this alive with Jake. You keep acting like that. He looks over at Dyer, and he just shakes his head like a bull in a china shop. And I promise you, it's going to act the exact same way as it did the last time. There was a reason you should have been outside. You need to go outside and make sure everything is okay. Do it.
We see a kind of a look of inner turmoil come over the face of Keen, the younger version of Keen. And the rest of you see something that probably catches your attention because it's different. It's different from the way things happened before. As Keen lowers his pistol and turns towards the doors of the bank and heads outside.
Akacheta will go to Stone. Along the way, he's just going to kind of tap on anybody to see if he makes contact with them. It's not a hard push. It's just to see if he can touch them.
Yeah, the first couple have what you would probably expect to be resistance, almost like pushing your hand into water. There's just a heavier mass there, but it doesn't quite make contact. The third person that you reach out for, you do make contact. Then I'll let you describe what this person looks like.
It's one of the bankers. He's wearing a nice pressed suit that is well worn. It's probably the suit he brought with him to the Caldera. He's got a bolo tie, kind of husky guy, and he makes contact with him, and he mutters in Dorathian just the word of apology. Most people around here know it. Most Dorathians, if they make contact with the others, they just apologize a few times. And that's kind of the thing that Akacheta is doing. Is there are people in here with a gun that he doesn't look like he necessarily belongs with them at the moment. Knowing that his other self is outside is kind of a strength inside the room at the moment. And he goes up to Stone, and Stone is fully inside the door, completely blocking Akacheta to go through. And he says, Stone, you know I have to go out there. You know, I got to fix this. Are you going to give me a chance?
And the Minotaur sort of looks at you, Akacheta. He just says, if you'd been inside the bank instead of fighting with those damn deputies, Jake would have made it.
Jake would have made it if Jeremiah didn't shoot him in the back as he came out of here. I need to get my ass on top of that building and take care of Jeremiah.
All right, Shola, show me. And he steps aside to let you pass.
And Akacheta, seeing that he can interact, seeing that he can manipulate and change things, does not think to change the path of his past self. He lets that nonsense start. You see past Akacheta wrap up one of the deputies into kind of this arm bar and puts the deputy between him and the other deputy. Shots are fired, and the whole scene kind of starts up with Akacheta moving quickly to the cat house. At least the scene outside.
And I think maybe the younger Akacheta actually spies the older version of you as you dart across the street. Almost, you're pretty sure that he sees you. Just as you take the younger version of you takes a bullet in your lapse of focus to the knee, just above the kneecap. And the older version of you all of a sudden feels that scar that was never there before, all of a sudden kind of tense your leg and sends you into pain as you're running, as this old wound suddenly just appeared in an instant.
And I would imagine that Solomon is actually thinking about waiting, and then it dawns on him that that old boy, that young kid, he was shaking like a dog shit in a peach seed that day. If we could have only taken that boy out. And at that point, he looks up and he casts darkness, thinking of himself, and casts it over where Erasmus is, who he calls Erasmus.
So kind of between you and where this Jeremiah Erasmus character is.
Yeah, depending on how far he is away, I think the range might do it. 60 feet, so I don't know how far out he is.
Oh, I see. You're trying to cast it where he's actually perched.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so that corner of the building is kind of thrown into this pitch black that is almost like flickering in and out of existence, seemingly. Like it's not quite whole. Like it's not quite the only thing that's going on in this space. But it has definitely thrown young Jeremiah for a loop. He's kind of looking around him, not understanding what's going on. And that certainly gives Akacheta a little bit of time to get to him. Anyone else?
Little Fox, upon seeing her past self, just kind of stops and looks just kind of wide-eyed. The color just drains seemingly from her eyes until they just look like this steely gray color. And she begins to shake quite violently. And with one shaking hand, she reaches for her pistol. And she takes it out and she shoots herself in the leg, like her past self. Out there, you're gonna mess everything up. You were never good at waiting. You always, as she's walking towards herself, you were always so quick to act. So quick to be the hero. You just need to step back and maybe he'd survive.
And as the young version of you falls to the ground with what she assumes to be a stray bullet, grabbing a hold of her leg, the older version of you likewise feels the pain of a new old wound. As things start to unfold rapidly, Jake looks to the rest of you as the sound of gunfire has already begun, and he's spooked. Once again, this is not the way things happened before. And he looks over to you, Stone, and he says, "No way, man. This throws the whole plan off. We got to get out of here."
Is he looking at the older version of Stone or the younger version of Stone?
The younger version at this point.
Okay. So I think Stone was always one to overthink a situation, probably to the point of ridiculousness, which is probably another reason that he has the nickname that he has, slow as a stone. And he looks around and he sees sort of his older self standing at the door, sort of watching this whole exchange. He looks back at Jake and he says, well, Chieftain, then I say we get out of here. If this isn't the way it's supposed to go, then we should get while the getting's good. And he actually unslings his tribal shield from his back. There's like this wooden round shield with the symbol of the Stonehoof tribe painted on it, and feathers and sort of wooden fetishes and spirit charms dangling from it. He sort of like shields Jake as he starts to like move towards the door, sort of glancing from Jake to this older version of himself, who is now smiling slightly as he once again steps aside to let them leave. Even as older Stone is getting out his shield as well, if he has it, to aid in protecting this man that became his chieftain.
And the Deadwood drifters make a hasty retreat from the bank. And as the distraction between the magic that has been cast up near Jeremiah and the younger version of your Dorathian friend scuffling with several of the deputies in the street, I'm actually going to even... Oh, okay. So, sorry. The younger version of Akasheta, you now see, has been brought into custody. Again, not something that happened before. But the older version has climbed successfully onto the rooftop and has Jeremiah dead to rights in front of him.
Akacheta kind of looks down, sees the shackles being put on him, and remembers the pain that quickly followed, thinking that in a moment he's going to find himself bound by chains or something similar to that. If he has time, he's going to go ahead and take a lunge at Jeremiah, and he basically wants to grapple him and wrap the kid up so that he cannot take a shot, knowing that this kid is with the deputies.
All right. So it sounds like you're going to attempt a grapple.
I'm actually going to do it as an attack, and then I'll do the grapple as my bonus for excellent. My class feature. So cool. Hopefully I can do some damage and then wrap him up.
Okay.
So my attack here is, let me just check my number, is a 23 to hit.
We'll absolutely hit him.
That will be 9 points of bludgeoning damage. Akacheta wears some striking tools, which is part of the brawler stuff there. Essentially what his striking tools are, he has these bone charms and bracers that look like they're decorative, but in reality, they've been reinforced. The bone snaps away, and you can see a steel rod has been inserted into these hollowed out bones.
Nice.
As a knee kind of clips into Jeremiah's shoulder and chin as he's leveling the gun, it knocks the gun to the side, and Akacheta kind of rolls into it, trying to grapple him as a bonus action. That is not going to be as good, it looks like. That comes out to a total of 15.
Which definitely beats his 8. So
Awesome.
completely caught off guard as you clock him and he stumbles, you're easily able to slip in behind him or put him into whatever kind of a lock that you wish to grab a hold of him in.
Yeah, it's kind of the same armbar that we just saw a moment ago. Akacheta's pulled his actual, his trigger arm back and twisted it so that if he was to get his hand on the gun, Akacheta wants to try and wrench the bones and hopefully break his hand so that he can't use the gun. But he's not there yet. So it's kind of this locked arm bar for the moment. That'll be my whole turn.
Excellent.
How many deputies are on the young Akacheta?
The one that he's holding is currently dead. He's filled with some extra breathing holes. But the other 2 are kind of taking position up behind a couple of rain barrels nearby.
Okay, but the young Akacheta was put into irons at the moment?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, I forgot that part. Yeah, they had come out, and they are kind of putting him into shackles at the moment.
Okay, so there are 2 on him, putting him in irons. All right, so I would imagine that the older Holy Joe walks up and basically levels his gun on one of them. That's the one that's clasping the irons on him, and fires on him. So,
All right. So go ahead and make a roll, your attack roll with your handgun.
that is a 14 to hit.
That definitely bypasses their AC. So you, again, almost out of nowhere, kind of appear, and he kind of, what? And turns and looks just as the sound of your gun goes off.
So as the weapon fires, this sort of green mist explodes from the revolver in this sort of slow motion as this pellet is flying forward, this lead pellet, but it almost looks like bone, black encrusted bone, as it flies forward and does 14 points of damage as it hits the deputy.
And what does it look like as it kills him?
So I would imagine that he's probably standing behind him, and Akchet is kind of leaning over, trying to fight both of them. So basically, he takes it square in the forehead, and the back of his head just erupts in this explosion of like sickly green mist as this hex gun expels forward from the back of his head. And I would imagine that his body begins to erupt in just sort of this emulsion of pestilence as his body is slowly taken over, and he begins turning into a desiccated corpse as he drops to the ground.
The other deputy drops the keys that he was holding and turns and begins to flee down the street, screaming at the top of his lungs, about there being witchcraft. So it looks like, for the moment, the younger versions of yourselves might have a clean getaway, with the one little problem remaining of Jeremiah.
I
So-
imagine that Keen, at this point, the past Keen, has walked out toward the chaos. And at this point, old Keen is watching him, just trying to see what he might do. But Keen sees that Holy Joe just shot this man's face pretty much clean off. And he thinks to himself, maybe he can do it. Maybe he could do it himself. Maybe he could right the wrongs that he did, the things that he changed. Yeah, I think at that point, old Keen would start going up to toward the rooftops. He wouldn't want to get close because that's never Keen's style. He doesn't get close. He shoots from afar. He would get on an opposite. He would start walking upstairs and go to an opposite building facing the building that Jeremiah was, sitting on top of. And he would start to perch his gun, readying his rifle from a distance far away, while the black and darkness is surrounding Jeremiah. It's like it's a perfect storm of coincidence. And old Keen is not going to take a shot until he watches what past Keen is going to do. But he's going to prepare himself to take the shot if past Keen doesn't. And I imagine that we see past Keen walking through, and as you said, there's like that turmoil building up in his brain, that he's looking around at all the chaos. And I'll let you, Jeremy, kind of help me out here. How do you think he would have, like, what are the actions that you think kind of start progressing here as we, as he comes out and he starts seeing all of this chaos happening? I only can kind of tell how old Keen would be reacting to this kind of stuff. What would he have done after he left the building?
So I think that old Keen has kind of situated himself in the bell tower of the church in town, with the Luzite holy symbol that juts out of the top of the steeple, the kind of silhouetted image of a sword driven straight down into the ground. And as he kind of gets his rifle out and scopes in, he sees the younger version of himself turning and being the first one to the horses as he begins gathering up the reins of the rest of them.
You son of a bitch. You son of a bitch, you damn deserter. You're about to leave them, aren't you? You coward. Things go south and you want to run away. Motherfucker. That ain't happening. I came here to fix shit. All right, fine. And he tips his hat forward. You want to play that way? I'll play that way. And he takes a shot. He lines it up. But it's not to kill. It's just to startle. And he fires it in front of the horses. He fires a shot. And it rings out. And it fires in front of the horses and it startles the horses. That's the only one I'm giving you, kid. Make the right choice. Stay with your crew. Don't make the same damn mistake again. I know what I did last time and I ain't doing that again.
The horses spook and rear up. Those who he had pulling behind him in a train break free and turn and run the opposite direction from the report of the rifle, which happens to be, luckily, in towards the center of town where the rest of the group is coming out of the bank. The horse that holds the younger King also bucks and throws King out of the saddle and begins to take off in the opposite direction, away from the town and out into the Caldera's wilds.
Is Keen attached to the horse in any way?
No, clear out of the stirrups, straight into the dust.
Okay. I imagine I see that, and for a minute, my chest kind of goes clean. I feel that sort of redemption start to fill me.
All right, yeah. That was step one. Now, now get your head in the game, damn it. Step two.
And it's almost like he's trying to tell himself from afar,
pull your damn gun out. Do your damn job and end this.
And I think in that instant, around the corner of the barn that's not that far away from him, a deputy comes around with a rifle in his hand, kneels down and points right at the bank. And the young Keen, from his new vantage point, a place where he wasn't the last time, has full shot on this guy who apparently hasn't seen him. He pulls his gun and ends the man's life as he paints the side of the barn red.
And Keen is conflicted. He's like, that's not what I've meant, son of a bitch. And he gets his gun aimed toward Jeremiah. But the entire time he's trying to make that connection with his past self, something to tell his past self, do your job. Do what you were meant to do. You're a gunner for a reason. Do your job. And I think that's when,
if I didn't want to do it the first time, I'm doing it now. He lines up his shot and he places a specific bullet right in the chamber.
It's a filthy bullet. It is an absolutely grotesque bullet covered in ick of blood and just muck. And it shouldn't be able to fire out of the chamber. But then he fires. And I'm going to try to aim and hit Jeremiah through this darkness. And, you know, while he's covered in this darkness, I'm going to try to hit him. And that will be a 14 to hit.
Yes. It does
All
make
right.
Contact.
And that'll be a 9, 12 damage, actually.
Yeah, and this bullet passes straight through probably the lower part of his left lung. And he staggers back, almost staring, uncredulably. No, I'm not even going to attempt that word again. He appears confused and unsure as to how in the world Cheta could have imagined or could have managed this. But before we get back to that moment, how that all pans out in the end, I think we need to check in with Solomon.
Yeah, it was at this point Solomon, he starts hitting himself on the head, and he's like, it was the damn school children. Fuck! And he turns over and he sees the marshals walking up the streets at this point, and he's with the two marshals walking up with they had 2 shotguns, and they were school children in front of them, but they didn't wait. And it was at this point that shit really went sideways, because kids were in the way. And he doesn't know what else to do. So he just starts sprinting over to him, and he stands in front of one as the gun is leveled in his chest, and he points it at the other one, and he just fires on the other guy for a 19.
Absolutely. Coming out basically right beside this individual, whenever he's facing down the street, you absolutely catch him blindsided.
So he's standing in front of one that has this, this shotgun leveled at his chest, and he's got the other one, and he's basically just pretty much like almost point blank range firing on the other guy, and he does a total of 12 points of damage.
And what does it look like when he dies?
This one actually hits him in the chest, and he's actually stripped down to his shirt, and you see his hands just sort of, the skin just slowly starts sucking into the bones, and his face just sort of emaciate, and he kind of drops his rifle first and drops to his knees and just, and you actually see the wind actually start to take his head, and just as he falls back on himself. And the other one is basically, he's prepared to take the gunshot blast in his chest.
And as he rounds with this shotgun towards this older, almost phantom version of Solomon, is there anybody that wishes to intervene?
So Dyer, both the older and younger versions of Dyer, are still shielding Jake, and as the horses that were scattered by the older Keen come kind of charging their direction, because I'm assuming that's into the town, he attempts to kind of grab one of them and kind of like get Jake onto that horse, and he glances over his shoulder and he sees this situation that Solomon is in. About how far away would he be, roughly, would you say?
I would say that he's probably 40 feet or so from where this is going down with you and the lead horse.
Okay, so remembering what happened last time when he went to save Akacheta, or tried to save Akacheta, and that ended up distracting him, which cost Jake his life. Stone sort of grits his teeth, and he looks at his younger self and just says, listen to me. You protect this man, all right? You protect your chieftain. Get a horse. Make sure your shield stays out. You keep him safe. You understand? And his younger self just sort of nods. And then Stone's older self reaches down and takes out his derringer. And as he turns, kind of points it in the direction of the man threatening Solomon, he glances back at Jake and just says, I just want you to know something, Chief. I never thanked you for taking in an Owachi, an exile like myself. I don't think anybody's ever done something like that for me before, and I don't think anybody ever will again. And then he turns and he's going to go ahead and try and fire at this man menacing Solomon with his derringer. So let me go ahead and roll. Ugh, that's not great. That's a 6.
You do have a point of inspiration from earlier if you wish to use it.
I will certainly use that. That's a 7.
That, however, is still not good enough to hit. So the bullet whizzes past. No, the bullet actually passes through him, but because of this strange time bend, it passes through him harmlessly and causes him no damage whatsoever. Meanwhile, we see on the rooftop where Akacheta is grappled with Jeremiah, who, having been shot through the lung, is starting to grow pale, and black kind of spiderwebby veins are kind of growing up from the wound to cover the exposed parts of his skin. And he kind of looks up at you, Akacheta, and he looks like he can't quite work out what's going on. He's scared and surprised. He starts coughing up this thick black blood, but he doesn't say anything. He just stares up at you. What do you do?
Jetta, looking at this man that is pretty much doomed to his fate at the moment, just gives a sharp twist on the wrist. And if allowed, I just want to basically break his wrist so that if I let him go, he can't use his last breath to shoot me on the way down. But then Akacheta is going to disengage and just leave him there. As he stands on the ledge, he kind of says kind of clearly, if you get to a doctor, you might get that fixed fast enough. But I wouldn't waste time pulling the trigger on any one of us. And then he kind of jumps down the side of the building, lands with a pretty hard impact, gets up and starts running through the town, trying to catch up with the others.
And as you see the gunfight with the last remaining deputy play out a little longer before he is too killed, and the younger versions of you get onto your horses and ride away. The smoke returns, obscuring your vision, and the sounds of the panicked town fade from your ears before you find yourselves all seated around the campfire in the middle of a snowy wood once more. This is where we're going to take our break. So we'll take about a 10-minute break, go to the bathroom, refill your drinks, kiss your spouses, smoke them if you got them, etc., etc. We will let Chad introduce himself and his channel if he wishes whenever we come back from the break, and then we'll get the second half of this short entitled The Chains of Regret whenever we return.
Oh man, dude, thank you guys. So yeah, my name is Chad. I have a YouTube channel. It's entitled Chad Nick. You guys can go find me and hang out with me. I'm also DM Gastro Gamer, so I also have gastrogamer.org. You can find some of my stuff on there. I do a blog for video game stuff. Other than that, I am also 1/3 of Dudes of Yore, and I am so happy to be a part of this game. This is killer, guys. I love Wild West shoot 'em ups, and I'm excited for the next half. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. Always. Yes. And I have put the link for the Dudes of Yore in the bottom of the description of the video as well. Definitely go check us out over there. This is the podcast that Chad and I do with our friend Jeff. It's a lot of fun. Hopefully, we'll have our third episode out soon. So, yeah, 10 minutes, guys. We'll get back at it. All right, I am back. We've got several minutes before everybody else should be back, and we can get started with the second part here. I want to say thank you for everybody who may be watching this evening, for joining us. This is a setting of mine that I was very, very happy with. It was really awesome to kind of get to explore it over the course of 15 sessions whenever we did our first run of it. Met a lot of good friends through that, and yeah, it was a blast. So definitely go check it out if you're enjoying yourself tonight. And once again, I appreciate you giving us a watch. So yeah, give everybody a couple of minutes before we get back to it.
Did want to point out for anybody who's watching that is interested in the brawler archetype that I'm playtesting tonight, it's done through a point of inspiration. So if you want to know where I'm pulling stuff from, it's basically letting the fighter be a little bit more brawly, but still pretty different from the monk. The monk is definitely still a better option when you compare the two, but this is kind of an interesting build.
Absolutely. It's pretty cool so far. I like the way it's worked out.
I think my favorite thing about putting together the class, though, was adding the fist category for weapons and putting some options in there so we could do more like monk martial arts type stuff.
Yeah, I actually created a brawler class also, but I did it as a like a full base class.
I thought about that at first, and I actually built it up, looked at it, and then finally I was like, man, maybe I should make it an archetype. I made an archetype of a monk first, and then I decided that fighter would be a better fit.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
This is like its 4th revision overall as an archetype.
Yeah, my friend really wanted to play a like a handsy awoken panda bear in the Asian game that I ran.
Mhm.
And so he and I worked together on it and built it, and he had a lot of fun with it. It worked out pretty well. Did they have a good Christmas?
Yeah,
Holidays?
overall it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's good. Cool. So has everybody heard the whole Wesley Snipes and Sean Astin thing? No?
Haven't had yet.
Yeah, apparently Wesley Snipes and Sean Astin are writing an RPG supplement book.
Oh,
together.
yeah, I do remember seeing that.
Yeah, that is the wackiest shit I've ever heard in my life.
Well, from what I understand, Wesley Snipes actually co-authored a sci-fi book before, so it's not terribly off from what he's done.
That's just so bizarre. It's just weird. It's not something I ever would have guessed. If I could have thrown a dart at a board full of random facts, and I don't know if I ever could have come up with that.
It's supposed to be for Starfinder, which I did a couple games of Starfinder. I like it well enough. It cleans up a lot of the like outlying problems with Pathfinder and makes things a little bit more streamlined. I don't know. It's science fantasy. Science fantasy always has like weird catches for me. I can never quite be fully happy with them.
It's a very niche kind of genre. It's a very, very tight.
I think what it is like I have my expectation, and anything that doesn't fit my expectation, I'm just like, nope, not good enough.
Yep, that's too much fantasy, or that's too much science fiction, or it's the wrong kind of whatever. Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm very, very picky about my science fiction, much less so with my fantasy for some weird reason.
I tend to do the same thing with cyberpunk too. Like, cyberpunk has to trace this like really weird line for me to be into it.
Dude, I feel bad that like you guys, like I had a whole like overlay and everything done for this character, and I love it, but I have no camera.
Did you try?
What happened? Like,
did you try unplugging the camera and then cycling through the Hangout?
Well, it's on my Mac. It's on it's the one that's already pre-installed in my Mac. So like when I don't know what I did, because this is the first time I've done a Hangout since I got back from vacation. So, like, I don't know why it's not showing. It's weird. I may have to just play around with it.
Can you go into your settings and, like, switch to a different camera and then back?
I can change sounds. I don't know if I can change. I went to my system preferences, and it only shows where I can change the sounds. I don't see where I can change camera options.
In Hangouts, does it register your camera at all?
Yeah, it does. It actually shows FaceTime, like my FaceTime installed in dot camera. So I don't understand why it's not showing it on other stuff.
Do you have OBS or XSplit that you use?
No, I tried both, but I can use OBS, but it didn't want to work for me the right way last time I used it.
I was gonna say, because if you can pull your camera using OBS or XSplit, I know OBS just added virtual camera, and you could try and feed the virtual camera into Hangouts.
Oh, ooh, interesting. Okay.
Because I use it through XSplit as a virtual camera all the time.
I may have to try that. I don't know if I'm going to try that right now, like tonight, because we were playing the game, because I don't want to mess anything up. But I may do that for another test later.
I know it was the most recent update, so just make sure your OBS is fully up to date, and you should be fine.
Cool. Color sync. Where in the world?
All right.
Oh boy. Oh well.
So it looks like we've got everybody back. Sorry, Chad.
Hey, no, it's cool, man. I don't know what is going on.
If it helps, I can see your beautiful face in my mind's eye.
Thanks, buddy.
It's
Thanks.
really keeping my
Like,
sanity together.
That makes me feel so much better, and it makes me just love it all the more.
Oh, that's sweet.
So we're good, buddy.
All right. So, as we have found ourselves back around this small fire amid the snowy forest, having just relived, for lack of a better term, a past event that had shaped you all in some kind of profound way. How are you guys dealing with this?
I think that Little Fox would just be kind of looking at everyone else with this kind of sad, defeated look. Just kind of realizing that because she didn't do anything, because she didn't get involved, because she didn't, and because of them changing things, that they did succeed in saving what they wanted, who they wanted to save. And so for her, it's just kind of her own thoughts at this moment of, I was right to have not been there. Sidelines.
So I'm sorry, Megan, real quick. Did Little Fox say that out loud, that she was right to not be there?
I think she just would have like muttered it, or like under her breath. So I think it'd be up to you if you heard it or not.
Sure. I think Dyer would have. He sort of puts his shield back on his back, and almost using the head of his warhammer as like a walking stick, he kind of walks over to her and just puts this hand on her shoulder, and he says, we all had our parts to play that day, Little Fox. And he looks back at Akacheta and just shakes his head, and he's like, I don't know what that was, but he starts to smile a little. We saved him. We saved him. That's all that matters. In the end, that's all that matters. And the smile just keeps getting wider and wider, and he kind of squeezes her shoulder a bit, and just walks down and kind of sits by the fire. And he seems happy, but probably keen, having spent a lot of time with Dyer, would see that there's this hint of, but was it real? Did we actually change anything? Just a hint of concern and nervousness behind that smile. He just sort of stares into the flames.
Upon seeing that, we come back into the current reality. The vision, the smoke clears and the vision clears, and the first thing that comes out of Keen's mouth is, "God damn deserter!" And he throws his hat on the ground. You know, I was the first one that he picked out of a handful. A little spit runs off the side of him. And I had to go and do that to him.
I was this close. I was this close to leaving y'all in the dust. I should have shot my own. I should have shot myself in the head. That's what I should have done. Because now, I don't even care if we saved him and not die. I don't care about that. You understand what I got to live with now? I got to live with the fact that I looked and watched myself try to run away. I guess that's what I've been doing all these years. After that happened, I left y'all anyways.
So, what?
It's kind of funny, huh? I started off alone. I guess I end up alone.
Keen, do you fucking see Jake here? You and your piss swallowing in yourself is not bringing him back. And that fucking bull over there that's so happy with himself, he's about as dumb as a box of rocks, because Jake's still not here.
Well, what the hell happened to him? Man.
Fuck if I know, but we all fucking ran in our own way. And he looks around at everybody and he's like, I crawled into a fucking bottle. I don't even remember. I don't even remember the last 6 months. Barely. God knows how much blood's on my hands. I don't know. And he just turns around, walks away. He's like holding his head. I don't fucking know.
Why would they do something like have us relive this? So we could have done something. We could have done different things, but do anything but bring back pain. Then
Still think you all are missing the point. We change things. Yeah, Jake might not be here, Holy Joe, but there was no reason for all of us to be here. And Keen, boy, Holy Joe's right. We all ran in our own way. But the point is, that day, you didn't run. Not right away. And look, even if this was just, and he sort of looks around, even if this was just some sort of spirit trick or something, point is, we're tribe. All of us. And sure, sometimes the members of your tribe, they fuck you over. I got exiled from mine because I couldn't pass my test, my rite of manhood. But Jake brought us together. And I don't know. We saved him. I know we did. And he stands up kind of like he doesn't know what to do with himself. The smile's gone now. He looks sort of conflicted and just says, look, let's just sit down here and we can figure this out in the morning. All right. Shit. And he just kind of sits down and again, no smile now. He looks completely conflicted, sort of like running a hand through his mane and just clearly distraught now, realizing that maybe, Holy Joe is right. Maybe Keen is right. That it was just some bullshit that we had to go through for no reason,
Keen picks up his hat off the ground, dusts it off. He said, look, brother, I understand you. If there's anybody I understand, it's you. I understand how passionate you want Jake to be alive, but
damn it, I'm going to say this, and I don't usually say this, Joe. You know that. Joe's right. Look around you. You see any evidence that Jake's alive yet?
What makes you think that Jake would be here? I didn't think any of y'all was going to be here. It's just what you call it, a coincidence.
Well, how are we supposed to find out? How are we supposed to find out if he's alive?
I don't know. I guess we just wait to see if a flaming skull-headed man on a fiery steed wrapped in chains saddles up. Then we'll know we didn't fucking do anything. But saying that, spirits, damn it, we did something. We changed something. And he looks over at Akacheta. I don't know what to think about you anymore, Akacheta. That's the first time I've said your name in years. Before you just show la because I went to save you and Jake caught a bullet because of it, because I wasn't there to protect him. But now, maybe it's different. I don't know.
Chetta is looking at his bag, and he says, 3. There's still 3 logs. As far as I can see, nothing's changed. He pulls out another one and throws it into the fire.
And as you do so, the flames stir, sending sparks and embers up into the night sky, where they twinkle like orange stars amongst the rest of these celestial bodies in the sky before winking out. But as the fire is stirred into life by this additional fuel, some of you notice a young woman approach. A Dorathian woman. She's no more than 15, 16. She walks straight ahead and kneels beside your fire, extending her hands, warming them, as she kind of turns her round face, supple with youth, in each of your directions in turn. Tonight is very cold. She rubs her hands together and extends them towards the flames.
I'm sorry. If I could spare the wood, we'd throw an extra log on. We only have enough for the night.
I see. The wise one of the group. It's probably your Dorathian blood. And she kind of chuckles.
Maybe. I wouldn't call it wise, though. And Akacheta will kind of instinctively reach for the bottle of mash, but he hesitates another moment and doesn't take a swig this time.
Anyone else?
Solomon kind of turns around and he's wiping his eyes and he's just like, he sees this Dorathian. Oh no, what the fuck is this? He walks over and he kind of grabs her shoulder like to see if she's real.
Yes, she seems to be corporal. And she kind of lets out an ouch whenever you pinch her. And she kind of laughs and says, "You look like your head must hurt. You have found yourself in the bottom of a bottle. I can tell by the smell. Here." She kind of reaches down to a beaded satchel that hangs from her waist. And she produces kind of a dark, bluish, purple, almost like dried fruit. She hands it to you and she says, "Chew this, but chew it slowly. You will feel much better later."
Kind of looks at it and looks over at Aksheta. Any idea? Kind of look.
Akacheta, no words, just kind of nods, being familiar with remedies similar to it, not necessarily the specific one. It's one of those have faith. Let's see where this takes us. Nods.
And Solomon just he benches off a little bit of it and starts plopping them in his mouth, kind of doing as she says, sort of taking a little bit of it and eating it slow.
He kind
You
of
got
has
something for this pain in my back?
She says, "Perhaps sleep."
Well, there's that.
He kind of looks around. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, little Fox would just kind of be looking at her this time and just kind of. You're much too young to be here on your own. Where is your tribe?
She kind of nods and says, "I think there are more important questions to address." She says, "You should come with me." She kind of stands back up with purpose. And then she turns and starts to go. You can see she's heading down a nearby game trail that leads off into the brush.
Well, I guess the sooner we get through this, the sooner we can figure out what we're doing in the morning. Maybe we could find Jake. And Dyer kind of smiles a little bit as he picks up his hammer, kind of slings it over one shoulder, and just starts walking after her. And he's actually humming just this old Stonehoof tribe wandering song under his breath as his breath sort of fogs out in the air in front of him, and he follows this woman.
That's how you really feel, Megan. Is anybody not intending on following?
Yeah, Akacheta's just going to sit by the fire, and he kind of grumbles to himself and Dorathian about it's pointless, that nothing we're going to do tonight is going to change our path. And I imagine that eventually he's going to get dragged out one way or another.
Yeah, I would imagine Solomon walks. He's finishing this fruit. He looks down at the snow and makes sure it's not yellow. Kind of packs a little bit and rubs it in his hand, puts a little in his mouth, and then he throws it over at Akcheta and says, "Come on. What you got to lose? She may give you another feather."
How it works. And Akacheta kind of like gets up. Akacheta is very, very thin and tall, so when he gets up, it's kind of this gauntly form getting up, an almost unnatural look. And he follows Solomon. You know that mash was terrible, right?
Yeah. After the first bottle, you really can't tell, though. That's why you just keep drinking it.
Yeah. I'm familiar with that.
Why couldn't she have just been lost? But she would follow the rest of them.
Gerathians don't get lost.
So as the five of you traipse off, following this young Gerathian woman, we begin to see through the snow a light ahead. And as you grow closer to it, you can see a scene, one that you may not expect to find here in the snowy forest. One of you, if you would please, describe not when you have gone, but where you have traveled, as you will all be kind of bearing witness to someone who is in your life that at this moment has been caused some amount of grievance by your actions and how this is impacting them. No one.
So, will this solidify if the past had any effect, or the past trip had any effect on reality?
I'm perfectly cool with that, yes.
Okay. Akacheta arrives in a warm cabin with this great stag head on the wall. It's got 10 points. It's a buck that had reached maturity before being taken down. There's a great stuffed bear by the door, and just these heavy animal pelts all over the place to make it warm and cozy, overstuffed furniture. And there's a young man that is nursing his broken hand with these black spidery veins all over his chest as a doctor examines him. On the table is a silver revolver and a silver 6-pointed star, indicating that he's with the deputies. Ow! God damn it, that hurts. Comes from the young deputy. The doctor just kind of and keeps going with his examination. And Akacheta looks over at the deputy and kind of smiles, and he says, "Guess he got his star this time around." Looks around and just kind of kneels close to the fire, assuming that maybe this time it'll be different. Maybe they won't notice him. He completely ignores the rest of the scene around him and warms up at the convenient fire.
And they certainly do not seem to be able to tell you're there as they go on about their business. And back on the trail, where you continue to walk, there's a second scene that begins to develop. And whoever wishes to go next may do so.
Solomon is kind of walking pace down the street. He's in a camp, and he's taking a swig from the bottle as he's making his way to the saloon. What he doesn't see is off to the side, there's a man who's just walking away from his family because he notices Solomon. And Solomon goes walking into the bar, sits down at the table as this man walks in behind him, and they begin to play out some hands of cards. And Solomon was a fairly good hand at cards. But as the night was wearing on and his drink was getting heavier, he didn't notice that this man was pulling cards out, but he just kept getting luckier and luckier. And Solomon's instincts, he's old enough to know what's going on, even if he is drunk. He stood up and he told the man, "I've had about enough of your excellent luck tonight, boy. You and I will have words, hot words, that has to do with lead." And as the man reluctantly stood up and steeled himself, he realized the ruse was up. And he followed the man out on the street. 10 paces, boy. And as they walked the 10 paces out and squared off, this young man knew he didn't have a shot at this, even though he was drunk. And as the cold, hard shot hit him in the chest, he took his life as his wife. His wife came rushing up to him in the street. Solomon didn't feel anything except the thirst in the back of his throat at that moment. Had he given any thought to it, he'd realized he was just trying to make some money. He was just trying to make some money. Solomon walked back in the bar, and the bartender said, "I'll give you this bottle, but you got to leave." He nodded. He walked out as the woman still held the dying man in her arms.
And as we see this group of 6 make their way further down this game trail, we notice that the Dorathian girl has become a woman. Her face is thinned a bit. She's gotten a little taller, more confident. Some of the lines in her face are a little deeper. But she continues forward. And out of the snow, a third scene develops.
So Dyer, who is right behind this Dorathian child, who is now a woman, actually stops and looks around, and he sees that he is no longer surrounded by this snowy forest or snowy plain. He is standing in between these pillars of red rock. There's 7 of them that have been arranged in sort of a circle. And in the center of this circle, there is a pyre. And laid on top of this pyre, wrapped in these thick bandages, is this hulking shape. And he sort of moves closer and then stops, because standing very close to the pyre, probably close enough to possibly get burned if she doesn't move, is an older Minotaur woman, sort of light brown fur like Dyer's, but hers is streaked with white and has kind of these large black splotches all over it. And she's looking at this pyre with gray eyes, the same color as Stone's. And there's nobody else around. There's no other tribes members. She's just standing here watching this body burn and sort of wringing her hands. And she looks up at one of these red rock pillars that's been carved to look like a hawk in flight, almost, sort of like the head and the wings of a hawk in flight. And she says, "Oh, Kiris, I don't know where he is. I don't know what I thought would happen. He is Owachi, he's exiled, but I thought he'd at least be here when his father passed." And she looks back at this burning figure on the pyre. "I always thought that I would go before he did. It seems I was wrong about that too." And Dyer just sort of stands there, watching his mother as she sort of presides over his father's lonely funeral pyre. And he realizes that because when he left his tribe, his father was still alive, this is something that's happening probably right now or happened sometime in the recent past. And he just drops to his knees and just stares into the fire as it slowly consumes this linen-wrapped body amongst the standing stones of the Stonehoof tribe in the middle of this cold, lonely winter night.
We see... Yeah, never mind. Sorry. Didn't mean to do that. You're good.
No, you're good. So we now notice that this Dorathian woman looks to be with child. Her belly is swollen, and some of the brownness has returned to her face as she waddles when she walks. But she looks pleased. Chad, go ahead.
Keen's an interesting individual, coming from both elven and human parents. We see that as they walk down this path, the image turns to the wide open plains. We see a wagon cart and two individuals riding atop the top. An older, weathered human man, his hair now covered in a almost snowish gray ash. And the woman next to him, far younger, but with a look of just youth and brilliance in her eyes. She seems to have that wisdom that only elves could. And the man seems to be gripping the reins of the horses tighter.
Damn it, Ariel. What, honey?
It's just that damn Colton. You see what happened to him? I told you, honey. It was only a matter of time
before it's only a matter of time before this damn Caldera turned our son into a demon. You know that. It's what this place does to you. You fight for survival. I'm sorry that I had to go and get you involved in all this. You didn't do anything to us. And he's not a bad child. Yeah, well, he's an adult now. And as far as I'm concerned, and he places a small pamphlet in front of her. Look, you can be blind to it all you want. That's fine. But our son is a goddamn bounty hunter now. He's got blood on his hands. Ariel. Something I never thought that I'd see our son do. And now you and I have to leave every town in damn Caldera, because they're hunting us. You know what happened the other day? Last time we put the fire out? Man came up to me, asked me if he knew where a man named Keen was. I said I never heard of a man named Keen. But he said that he might go by a name of Colton or Dustblood. I knew Dustblood. And Weston Dustblood almost seems to be crying. Tears are coming down his eyes. I thought I raised him better than that. I thought I raised our boy better than that. It's all right. He's got a conscience in there. He's a good boy. Yeah, well, next time I see him, if he's got blood on his hands, you may not have a son.
And we rejoin the small group on the trail walking through this small evergreen forest. And we see that this Dorathian guide has aged a little more, now carrying with her a child. She's a mother now, no longer a maiden. And as we press on, another scene begins to unfold before us.
This scene is a window. And inside, you can see the table has been set for meal. The fire is burning bright. The whole indoors just exudes the sense of warmth, sense of invitingness, the sense of calm. A woman walks out into view, along with a small child scampering along on her heels behind her. She is not a Dorathian woman, but an Unglar woman. And she busies herself finishing up the table to be set, putting out the last of the food. The boy hurries around, excited to feast on the food that his mother had slaved away making. The door opens, letting in some of the cold, frigid outside air. He kisses the woman on the cheek. It seems all very routine. And they sit down and they begin to eat. But all of a sudden, the door is opened once again, but this time more violently, the door almost coming off its hinges, and men with guns and wearing the light tan and the gray dusters come in. And you can hear them screaming and yelling at the woman and the man who stands in front of the woman to protect her. The child runs in fear behind his mother's legs. And you can't hear too much of what they're saying through this window, but you hear words like, you can hear some muffled words like magic user and hiding and then is just trying to protect the wife, but at the cost of his own life. Busters pulls out a pistol and shoots him point blank. The woman screams, and the other men grab her and take her away. And during all of this, little Fox, tears streaming down her face, is banging at the window, yelling at them to run, calling them mother and father, screaming, but they don't seem to react. Nobody notices her banging at the window. And then the room is empty. Food still lies on the table. The fire still going. But there is no one left inside.
And as we find this small group once more back in this frozen wasteland, the guide has aged to the point of wrinkles beginning to appear upon her face. She is beginning to walk a little slower, no longer with child. But there's wisdom in the crow's feet at the corners of her eyes and the gray that streaks her hair. And I believe in the first cabin that we came across, there was something else that developed.
Akacheta warms his hands near the fire, or at least makes the pantomiming for it, but the fire provides no warmth as he expected it from it. More grumbling from the doctor, and finally the doctor puts his small perch spectacles inside of his bag, locks up his stethoscope, and you can see Jeremiah with this kind of twisted smile, like, let me have it. What's the worst you're going to tell me? The doctor says, sir, your hand is fine. It will heal. It's a bad break, but 2 months' time, I give it. This other, and he kind of hesitates to say anything. And Jeremiah kind of spits out the words, What? The other what? The other wound? This mark? Tell me. Sir, I'm not sure how to tell you this, but I don't think it's anything medical. I think you've been cursed. And Jeremiah picks up the gun and fires it actually at the doctor, furrowing into his shoulder, causing no real harm. And you can see in Jeremiah's face that he knew the doctor was going to say it in the first place. He's just angry about everything. And the cabin fades out of existence for Akacheta. He's left standing inside the snow next to this full pine tree that's weeping needles on him in the breeze.
And we see once more this small train of individuals who are now led by a very old, weathered Dorathian woman who's hunched and walks with the help of a stick. And you realize that this small game trail has led you back to the same exact clearing that you were in before you left. Your fire is still burning, though its flames are a little lower than before. Your guide walks directly over to the fire and kneels down as she did before, next to the flames. Before then, sighing and laying down on her side. Anybody who has ever seen someone die of old age before gets a sinking feeling that that is what they're witnessing here. She begins to make herself comfortable.
Little Fox would kind of rush up to her, kind of seeing this. No, you can't just leave. Why did you show us that? Why? You can't just do that and then leave and die.
A moment only lasts a brief while in this world. It is time to move on to a new moment, a new now. You must let go of the things that have happened. Face the things yet to come.
That's just not fucking right. That boy deserved it. He was fucking cheating, okay? He was fucking cheating. Cheating at cards. You know that's wrong. Dyer, I've seen you put a horn through a boy for that. He was cheating at cards. He deserved it. Fucking deserved it.
You gonna
Keep
keep
your
telling
peace.
yourself that?
Holy Joe, just keep your peace. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. And he just sort of lowers his head and he just starts softly crying to himself.
I think Keen looks at Joe. He says, look, you can keep telling yourself and repeating it to yourself over and over. It doesn't change it. See that he pulls his hat down a little bit more over his eyes. But if someone is really keen of perception and can see through that, you see that this man who has been weathered by just and the will to survive, you can see that he begins to cry underneath his hat. And he just whispers to himself, "I'm sorry. I never meant to." I just wanted to live. It's hard to live when you're told that with humans, you don't fit in with Dorathians. You don't even fit in with elves. So what the fuck are you?
The old woman continues to gray further and becomes more and more skeletal. Her eyes begin to cloud over, and her breathing becomes shallow and fast.
Before she goes, can Dyer say something real quick?
Yes, absolutely.
So Dyer sort of looks up and he hears the sound of her labored breathing and realizes from his time with his tribe, she doesn't have a whole lot of time left. And he actually gets up and sort of walks over to her and kneels down, puts an arm on her shoulder, and he says, can you tell my father that I'm sorry? Would you do that for me when you see him?
When I die, I will be reborn in an instant. I am the spirit of present. There is never a time that I do not exist. You will have your moment to tell your father what you need to say. When that moment is upon you, take it by the horns. And she kind of winks. Do not wait for the future, and do not regret the past. And with
Easier
that,
said than done.
she dies.
Go in peace. He sort of squeezes her arm and goes back and sits down where he was before.
I don't think Slade's dead. At least not the way we thought he died. I mean, he's got to be dead. We're living through this. But we definitely changed things.
I don't know, Akucheta. I mean, spirits, fucking. I don't know. But I do think you're right. I think we changed something. I find it hard to believe that we'd be put through this sort of torment if it didn't mean anything.
I saw that wannabe deputy squirt, Jeremiah. He had his star. And he found out he was cursed. I don't know what that means, but it's probably not all that good.
No, it is not.
Holy Joe says he got what he deserved. And he walks over to the grabs the crate. He got what he deserves, and he walks over and he starts taking the bottles, throwing them in the fire. Boy got what he deserved. He fucking did us wrong.
Akacheta will pull out another log. Well, there's 2 left. And he throws it inside kind of the liquor-soaked logs that have spurred up and given the fire new life. I think I'm gonna try and rest. There's probably one more of these things coming, but if I have to move in the morning, I better be ready for it. And he just kind of curls up as close as he can get to the fire without being like dangerously close to it. And it's another one of those half-hearted, he's not asleep. We all know he's not, but we're not going to draw attention to it kind of things.
And Dyer, to kind of support this lie that we're all sort of half acknowledging, he just looks at the others and says, "Yeah, you should all get some sleep. I'll take first watch, and Holy Joe, you got so much energy and so much fire in your belly, I'll wake you up for second watch. But love of the spirit, stop throwing away all the alcohol. I might actually start drinking after tonight."
As he throws the last bottle in the fire.
You son of a bitch. Go to sleep, you asshole.
I've been called that before.
And as some of you lay down on your bedrolls, attempting to get some sleep from this disturbing evening, one of you, quite suddenly, and quite closer than you may be comfortable with, spies the figure of a dark figure of a man seated on a nearby rock, very close to the edge of your camp.
I think Keen would probably be the first one to wake at that. Almost like that trigger happy. He doesn't sleep very, very well. His elven lineage usually just lets him meditate. His bedroll goes there. Answer yourself.
Thinking this is spirit number 3, boy. Best brace yourself. And Dyer sort of stands up.
And Little Fox, upon hearing the commotion and hearing Dyer say that this was the 3rd spirit, she just sit up and grab her pistol and no, you do not bring us any more torment. And she would unload every shot she had left at this thing.
All 4 of your shots strike true, center mass, to this figure. But the figure doesn't move. Instead, it just raises its face so that the brim of the hat no longer hides its visage. But beneath, where you would expect to find a face, you see nothing but darkness. The figure does not move, nor does it speak.
And when she does that, she kind of knew that it wasn't going to do anything that this was a spirit, but she would fall to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Please, just end it now. Why do you have to put us through such torment? Just end it.
We fixed things, didn't we? We fixed things. He basically looks to the group kind of calling out things about fix things, my ass. So,
Agachetta, laying
He
on the
looks at
ground, kind of quietly whispers, keeping his eyes held tight, like he's pretending to sleep through the gunshots and everything. Changed, not fixed.
Yeah. Fine. Changed.
So, and he looks to the cold and dark figure in front of him, aimed at it, but seeing that it would do no good, he spins it around. So, Undertaker, you here to announce our sentence? Or are we just so that you have to go ahead and take the sickle to our throats in our sleep?
I should note that the boy does not speak for all of us, just throwing that out there, but do speak your piece, Spirit.
The dark figure tilts his head in the direction of Keen and casually kind of kicks his leg sideways and hops down off the rock that he was sitting on. And Keen, in an instant, you realize he wasn't sitting on a rock. It's a tombstone. And on the tombstone, you see, clear as day, the name Colton Dustblood. And it says in bold letters near the bottom, hanged.
What? No. I have been, yeah. I've been a snake in the grass. I've been an asshole. I've been a hell of a lot of things. But I ain't never been hanged for no goddamn reason. That ain't right. That's not real.
Notice the date of death is several years in the future. But when you're talking about the end of the line, it may not be enough years to be comfortable.
And at that, Keen sort of drops to his knees. He stops this facade of being like the badass gunman that he once was, and pistol sort of falls out of his hand, trembling. He says, no, that's not how I go. Spirit, just please.
Look
That's
at that,
not me.
Keen. You're gonna get hanged, boy.
You shut your mouth, Holy Joe.
Well, it says it right there.
Yeah.
Holy Joe, when you point, you notice that the tombstone looks different. And this one, instead of reading Colton's name, says Solomon Gehring. Hanged.
Looks like we're going out together, brother. Couple swinging dicks.
I won't argue about the dick part, but I don't think you're going to get hanged today. So,
Now, I expect a well-hung joke to follow that shortly. Now, just hold your tongue, bull boy.
you ain't that well hung, Holy Joe. And Dyer steps forward and says, "Look here, Spirit. Let's just finish this up. We've been through a lot tonight."
Spirit simply turns around and walks a few paces away. Did you notice that all of you have now found yourself amid a cemetery, an old cemetery, nestled within an ancient Dorathian ruin, a skeleton of what this Caldera place used to be before the Sundering. This dark figure simply points in the distance. And up the staircase, on a hill just on the outside of this building, through one of the ruined buildings, you see a tree on the top of that hill. And all of you, if you wish, may make a religion roll.
The camera tightens in on Akacheta. He's got his eyes clenched shut, and he can feel the world swirling around him. The magics, the spirits moving, whatever you want to call them, but he just continues to mutter to himself, "Not gonna look. Not doing this. Not gonna do it again." And he's fighting it with every bit that he can.
So, Stone, Holy Joe, and Little Fox, the three of you know instantly what it is you're looking at. This is a place called the Gallow Tree. This is a hanging tree that is ancient. Ancient beyond even the old Dorathian kingdom. There's not a single leaf that grows from its branches, yet it refuses to fall. Any attempts that have been made to cut it down or burn it have met with disaster, but never to the tree. Amongst its boughs, there is a bouquet of hanged bodies. You find yourself stepping near the base of this tree. Several of you at least. And the hanged bodies spin on their nooses and face you all at the same time. And they open their mouths, and when they do so, they speak in unison. You must change your ways. Change more than just a moment in time. Change more than just the way you feel about things that were done to you, or the things that you did. Change the things you have yet to do. If you do not heed my warning, you will become a part of my collection.
Dyer looks up at this tree and at these speaking corpses, and he actually frowns a little bit and sort of tilts his head to the side, kind of wipes at the tear streaked lines in his fur, and he says, "And who are you, tree of death, to tell us how to live our lives? We have been through a great deal tonight. We are all changed." He looks back at the group, "in one way or another. We are not the same people we were at the beginning of this night. But our destiny is our own. Our paths are our own. You do not dictate that to us. And so I say to you, tree of death, we will walk from this place changed, as you say. But we choose how we will live."
Then I hope for your sake that you choose well.
I hope so too.
Does anyone else wish to say or have any kind of interaction with this being?
Solomon looks up and sees a couple faces that he actually recognizes. And he takes a deep breath and just kind of looks back and he's like, wow, cursed sour mash. I think I need to cut back.
Now that is the best idea I've heard all night, Holy Joe.
For once, you said something smart.
And I think the stars that surround the backdrop of this gallow tree begin to slowly fall as they become the prominent snowflakes that fall amongst you in the forested clearing where you sit around your fire still. Before we close out our tale for the evening, does anybody have any last words or moments for their character that they'd like to put out there?
Yeah. The spirit eventually pulls up Akacheta, who's kept his eyes tightly shut this whole time, trying to ignore everything around him. And the spirit just kind of hoists him by his shoulders. And finally, Akacheta opens his eyes and looks into these deep shadows where the spirit's eyes should be. And he's filled with a vision. He sees a newspaper drifting down the street that shows a crude drawing of him, kind of a caricature, more or less, that says that he has been whipped to death for crimes of being a witch. And you can see Jeremiah at the end of this town that we started off in, with lines of Dorathians tied to posts. And he has a whip that has nasty barbs all over it that are covered in dried out blood from days of going through Dorathians. And he starts screaming at them, "This will continue until one of you cures me. I know that Dorathian put this curse on me. When the blackness faded, he was the only one there. You will cure me, or you'll all die for witchcraft. Nakachetta screams, coming back to reality, seeing that, yeah, they changed things. But it wasn't for everybody's good or everybody's sake. This time for real, he's passed out, completely exhausted from the emotion, and the spirit just drops him to the ground.
Solomon turns to seeing that Akcheta falls, and he just kind of nods and he walks over and gives Little Fox a hug. And then he goes over and shakes Dyer's hand. And then he takes Keen's hand and he shakes it. And he says, I think we got purpose. We got a new purpose, boys and girl. And he winks at her as he calls her girl.
She lets him have this one, but just this once. She says, we've been through this night together. And I think that we should stay together and help each other. To stick on this path or whatever.
And Dyer nods at her, and as he shakes Solomon's hand, he kind of grips it a little and says, I think you're right. I think it was a mistake to split like we did, just because of what happened to Jake. I do think, and he sort of grins a little bit, but it's shaky after everything that's happened. I do think we should try and find the old fucker. See if we can find the chief. Maybe we did change things. Maybe that's our purpose. We try and find him. And while we do it, maybe try and do a little good in this world. Maybe try to repair some of the damage that we've done. And he looks over at you, Keen, and the smile widens, and he says, it was real stupid of me to leave the way I did. I felt like if I couldn't protect Jake, I couldn't protect the rest of you, and there was no point. And I was furious at him, and he sort of nods over at Akacheta. But it's stupid. We're stronger together. We're better together. We always were. We couldn't have pulled off half the shit we pulled off if we had been by ourselves. Sure, Jake brought us together, but we stayed together because we're good as a team. And I think that's the way we ought to stay. What do you all say? And let's go of Solomon's hand.
Well, we might need to get some coffee for Akacheta, but he needs some
And he'll be
energy.
fine. Just kick him once or twice. That usually wakes him up.
Yeah, but he has a mean punch. You ever been hit in the nuts by that guy?
That's why I
My
said.
God.
That's why I said you ought to be the one that kicks him once or twice to wake him
No,
up.
no. That's all you, bull boy.
Chad, do you have any parting thoughts for Keen? We lose Chad? Oh.
Locked on mute.
Apparently Keen didn't survive. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap the game at this point, as the camera kind of pans back and away from this small collection of people gathered around this meager fire, and out over the caldera once more as the sun begins to crest the horizon, and we can see that the storm clouds are breaking. And that's it, guys. That's all I've got. So I will hand it off to my fantastic players and let them do their outros before we put a little bow on this and call it an evening. It looks like Chad did go ahead and drop out of the group, so he wasn't here for introductions, and he wasn't here for outroductions. That's just like Chad. I'm kidding, Chad. All right, so we'll pass it to Chris first.
Sure. I'm Chris with Drop Dice. It's been a lot of fun. This is my third time doing a Western style D&D, and I actually really enjoy them. Not because it's very easy for me to do Texas accent, but because they're generally really interesting. So if you do get a chance to jump into one of these games by any of the people that do Western games, make sure you give it a try. It's interesting because it's a lot of drama inside those kind of stories that we don't get to see in a lot of fantasy games. And it's like high consequences too, because guns are deadly, which we didn't get to see much of. But yeah, like we had a discussion earlier about using a shotgun and allowing me to grapple somebody and then pull a sawed off on them, which I thought about doing to Jeremiah there, but I was like, nope, I got plans for him. And I'm really glad I decided to keep him around.
Yeah. Yeah, I did have a couple of combats planned, but you guys just did a fantastic job of being more diplomatic about a lot of it. And it just didn't pan out that way. So it ended up being a pretty heavy RP game. And yeah, I thought it was fun. Next, Megan.
All I have to say is that is an excellent ending to an awesome year of D&D. Couldn't have asked for a better GM or better players to end out this year. So thanks, everyone. That was a really emotional, awesome game. But yeah, I'm one half of the YouTube channel, Dice on Ice. And yeah, thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you, Megan. It's always a pleasure. I don't know if you've played in a couple of games of mine before. Yeah, but I've spent a lot more time playing alongside you, and it's always a lot of fun. You bring a lot of good emotion to your characters. Okay, next we go with Jason.
Yeah, man, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. It was great playing with you guys, and I'm actually looking to start a channel of my own. I think I'm going to call it either Characters and Concepts or Concepts and Characters, because names are hard. Names are really hard. But yeah, I'm really glad I got to do this. This was a fantastic game, and I think it goes to show that because a lot of people think the one shots have to be very combat heavy, and sometimes they are. But if there's no reason for them to be, then they don't have to be. As long as you have a compelling story and interesting characters, I think that's really all you need for D&D or really storytelling in general. So hats off to you, Jeremy, and hats off to everybody else. You guys were fantastic.
Likewise, Jason. Likewise, very much so. This was my first game running for you, but it's not my first time playing with you. So I was glad to have you on board, and I imagine it'll happen again in the future. All right. Dave.
Hey folks, I'm Dave with Warnblade Gaming, and what a great game tonight. Kind of choked up on a couple of them, caused myself to get choked up a little bit. And to echo Chris's comments, the Wild West could be really harsh at times, and it's easy to pull painful imagery out of those. And so yeah, it's because the introduction of firearms into a world, and so quick that death could be given or delivered is is an interesting concept. So yeah, what a lot of fun. Always have a lot of fun playing with these guys, and just what a great way to end the year with an excellent sort of Scrooge sort of session. But really cool. I hadn't walked into this thinking that, so really cool. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, everyone, for playing.
Absolutely. Always glad to have you at the table, Dave. You knock it out of the park every time you sit down in. Absolutely. All right, and since he has made a triumphant return, Chad,
I've risen from the grave
with your outro, if you would, please.
Keen died and dropped it, at the very last minute. He was just like, I'm going to change my death. No, to be completely honest, I didn't know what to expect when going to this, and always surprised me with like things that I kind of expect from you at this point, but in a way where like I'm not expecting them. And let me explain this. I've played with this dude for a long time now. What, you and I've played together almost got to be at least 1 to 2 years now that we've been in each other's games for a while, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Always come at games with like very simple concepts. Like I imagine the first thing you wrote on your paper was like Christmas Carol theme, right? Like I know that. I know you. You're like one sentence story, right? And you got it. What gets me is he finds a way, and what I love about this guy is that he finds a way to make very simple storylines, impactful emotional things that I was tearing up in multiple parts of this session. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say about you as a DM, because that's what you do. You take very simple concepts and you make them so special and memorable. And thank you. As my last game of the year, this is fantastic. To everybody else that I played with, I've at least played with most of you, and I am so happy. All of you guys like killed it. And first time playing with you, man, you killed it. Good job. It's awesome. Like I don't have words, man. Like I'm very bad at words when I get this way. I'm usually not, because like that's my shtick. But yeah, no, this is great, man. I'm having a lot of fun. Yeah. Outros, you know who I am. I don't need to do it anymore. I'm done. I'm out. Thanks, guys. This is awesome.
Thank you very much, Chad. I appreciate that, man. You're always a fantastic player. You always bring a lot to your characters, and both in their voices and in their 3 dimensions. You know, you really kind of fill out a character very, very well. So tonight,
Thanks,
guys, this entire cast was phenomenal. You guys just did such a fantastic job.
I was gonna say that, but I felt like I just started rambling and I got nervous. But yeah, everybody knows that they're good at what they do, and
I was very, very pleasantly surprised. Not that anybody was a good player, just that it came together as well as it did. So I thank you guys very, very much for kind of in the last minute deciding to run this game, that I was able to find enough players, and also the caliber that I was able to find. So thank you very, very much. I'm glad that you guys were willing to go along with this kind of weird rendition of Mr. Dickens's classic, and on a weeknight, no less. And yeah, so without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. So I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas, have a happy New Year, and until next time, May your dice roll high and your snacks always be within reach.